There's a lot of reasons I relate to Ron Stoppable. Nerdy. I like gaming. Wasn't the most popular in high school. Surprisingly athletic, at least I used to be. And on top of that, ended up with a beautiful redhead that's way out of his league. But the big thing is, you remember that one episode whenever there was the boy band Oh Boys that everybody was in love with? And then Ron jumped on the bandwagon way after everybody else? Yeah, so with that being said, here's my thoughts on the first time watching Stranger Things. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Stranger Things Season 1, Episode 1, The Vanishing of Will Byers. So it's been now over 9 years since the first episode premiered of this show, and I'm just now looking into it, and I realize that's pretty surprising to think that I've not been spoiled on anything to do with the show. And to be honest, I probably have. I've heard some conversations about it, but out of context, they didn't mean anything to me. I heard character names that I don't even think I've met yet. So I am coming into this pretty blind. I know sort of the style of the show. It's kind of sci-fi mixed with a bit of horror and thriller. Obviously set back in the 80s, so there's a lot of nostalgia in it as well. So there are some elements that are definitely things that I would enjoy, and then there are some, mostly the horror elements, that I feel like I'm not going to be as into because it's just not my thing. But I still am excited to check it out, and especially with the final season about to premiere next month, I figured now is as good a time as any to get into it. So here we go. First episode. Not really much to talk about story-wise. It's a good setup. Mostly mystery involving what happened to Will, kind of introducing us to the characters, getting us into this world. And I do think it's a very solid start. I already feel myself getting engaged. I'm interested to see what happens with these characters. I think a lot of that is down to these characters feel very natural, especially the kids. I don't remember all of their names. Like, I want to say Michael's the kid with the slightly longer hair, but the other two are not coming to mind. But I'm just terrible with names, so I'll get them eventually. But those three main kids, they feel very natural. Three kids who are friends, who riff on each other, they argue, they fight. They're boys, so they're still friends at the end of the day. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but that's kind of kid logic. It's not supposed to make sense because they're young and they don't really know any better. But at the end of the day, they still do care about each other. They still are friends, and that's why they're willing to go out in a storm to look for their lost friend. And I think that really, at the heart of it, shows who these characters are and what these kids are all about. And I think that's one of the things that's going to make them good characters to follow and to have the audience connect to. Outside of that, most of the other characters are fairly interesting. The only character I'm not so sure about right now is Steve, and it's mostly because I'm fairly certain he and Nancy are high school age, and high school boys typically have one thing on their minds, and so far in this episode, kind of all he seems to care about. And while he does back off when she sort of puts her foot down and says no, it still does feel like he's kind of forcing the issue. So I don't really know if they're trying to imply that he's not really caring about her boundaries and he's just waiting to find that right time to push that right button to finally get past her boundaries. But it definitely did feel like in this episode, there were several moments of her basically saying no and him not really listening until she kind of got a little bit more forceful about it. And that, to me, is a little bit of a concern. It's a little bit of a red flag, mostly because I've had female friends who have dealt with guys like that. But at the end of the scene with him and Nancy, she did seem to be kind of into it. So that's why I'm not sure what I'm supposed to take from this. I'm not really liking him so far. That could just be because of, again, some of the experiences that my friends have had in the past. But everybody else, I really liked. It's kind of funny when Hopper got introduced. I mean, played by David Harbour, who I do like as an actor, but his intro didn't paint him in the best light, so I'm thinking, oh, great, he's going to be kind of that, I guess, that stereotypical adult character in a show that's centered around the main characters are kids. It felt like he was going to be that one that when he talked to him at the school, he was like, hey, don't go investigate, don't do this, don't do that. I felt like that was going to be sort of his role. Then he gets to Will's house and he starts investigating, and all of a sudden, his intelligence is shown because he notices something's off. He finds the bike, leads him to the house, sees the mark on the wall to show him that he slammed the door open when he went outside, goes to the shed, sees the casings. It was a very sudden 180 for me, where he's kind of been shown to be mostly uncaring, kind of not a goof off, but somebody who doesn't take things very seriously because it's a small town and he's not used to seeing anything that is serious. But it's like as soon as he picked up on a couple of things, as soon as his instincts kicked in, that's when all of a sudden you could just see the change in his character. And it was a really impressive change too. So the writing and the acting for that scene I thought was really well done. But I think it's Joyce and Jonathan. I think both of their reactions to Will's disappearance is very realistic. When you think about the fact Joyce is a single mother, Jonathan is old enough to understand what's going on, has probably been the man of the household. I don't know how long it's been since, I'm assuming divorce or separation or something, I don't know. But you can see she's really starting to panic and he's trying to hold it together, and I've been there before. So it really kind of hit home with a lot of those scenes. I think the acting was really well done. I think the introduction of 11 too is very effective. I like the fact this one guy kind of seemed like he was going to be that asshole character, the chef. But then as soon as he sees her situation, suddenly turns very soft, wants to feed her, but obviously wants to try to help her as well. So I thought it was a nice change up where he could have just been like an asshole who found some kid eating his food and decides to kick her out, basically. I will say the one scene that it wasn't bad, it was just kind of stupid from a character's perspective. I don't think 11 would have necessarily gone with this lady. I don't remember what she said her name was. Honestly, she might have given a fake name as well. But I don't think 11 would have gone with her. But at the same time, you threw away any chance of her coming quietly by shooting the guy. I thought it would have been much smarter for her to keep up the charade as the social worker, try to get 11 to go with her, then after you get her in the car, then take out the guy who had contact with her. It wouldn't have spooked her, it wouldn't have caused her to run, but hey, if they did that, then the show would probably be a lot shorter, because I'm assuming that's going to be a big story point later, is them trying to get 11 back. Outside of that, like I said, there's not much else to talk about with the story. It's pretty straightforward setup, I would say. I like the atmosphere. I think the music as well. I'm a big fan of 80s music, so I'm really loving the soundtrack so far. Yeah, I'm really excited to be checking the show out and can't wait to see what comes next. So on to the next episode. I'll see you there. And now episode 2, The Weirdo on Maple Street. So I gotta admit, a couple of characters that I either felt sorry for or sympathetic towards in this episode kind of changed my mind. First of all, for Jonathan, I mean, for most of the episode, I felt bad for him. You know, he's a kid who's clearly on the outside looking in, dealing with a rough family life. Now he's lost his brother, dealing with a deadbeat dad. There's a lot about his life that he's definitely going through it. You can tell. That final scene, I will say, did give me the creeps. Just him taking pictures of everybody swimming, taking a picture of Nancy in the window. It's kind of creeper vibes. Don't know exactly what his intentions are there. I know why he went out in the woods. I'm pretty sure he's trying to take pictures to use to try to track down his brother. But when you start taking pictures of other people without their knowledge, it's not exactly the best look. And on that same train of thought, Nancy in this episode kind of turns into a little bit of a brat. Where in the first episode, I kind of felt like Steve was being way too pushy and kind of giving me some red flag vibes. In this one, we see she's kind of into it. And in fact, so much so that she pushes away her best friend so she can go sleep with this guy. It's not really a great look for her. So those are two character decisions I wasn't really on board with, but everything else in this episode, really interesting setup. I like how we're kind of getting a little bit more information from different sides of the story, where we see Mike, Lucas, and Dustin, I think. We see the three of them talking to 11 and getting some of the information. Granted, it's very vague information because she doesn't use a whole lot of words, but you can kind of piece together what she's trying to show, that Will was taken by this monster. Meanwhile, with Joyce, we're seeing possibly what ended up happening to Will, where I do know, just because it's been referenced a lot, of something called the Underground, I think is what it is. I don't know any details about it, but it seems like maybe Will is able to communicate with her. He's trying to talk to her through the phone, that he manages to, but it keeps zapping the phone. And so he seemingly went into Jonathan's room and then turns on the music. So I don't know if the Demigorgon or whatever it's called, I think they end up calling it a Demigorgon in the show. I don't know if that thing took him to this other place or if somehow he managed to escape there while trying to get away from it and now he's trapped in this other world. But I do like that we are kind of piecing it together through these different stories. It's not just following one group of people and seeing them piece it all together. I always do find those stories kind of entertaining, mostly because I like the moment whenever all the characters come together with their different pieces of knowledge and put it all together and solve the mystery of what's happening. But on the other side of things, the stuff with Hopper, also very interesting. I didn't talk about in the first episode, but the fact that he lost his daughter is something else that gives him a lot of depth that I think is going to be very interesting to explore. The conversation he has with Joyce, whenever she's telling him she knows her son's breathing, kind of calls him out. Wouldn't you know your own daughter's? It's harsh, but it's effective. And he understands where she's coming from, and it's not just oh, she's crazy. You can see by the look in his face, he makes that connection. I think so far, his scenes are probably my favorite scenes because there's so much being communicated with the audience without really much being said. When he finds out about Benny, which I do kind of wonder because I thought she shot him in the chest, so did she somehow angle it perfectly to make it look like he shot himself in the head? Or maybe she didn't shoot him with a gun first. Maybe she knocked him out and then whatever the case. But finding Benny seemingly have committed suicide, when he has the conversation with his fellow cops talking about Joyce and what she's going through, and then when he's out on the porch and Sandra comes out and talks to him, that scene right there just showed where his mind is. He can tell something's off because this doesn't happen. Like, this is just not a common occurrence in this small town, so he feels like there's something off, but he just doesn't know what, and he's trying to piece those clues together. So I feel like I'm probably the most interested in watching him trying to find all the clues and trying to piece it together with a more logical thinking brain, because I think where the kids have already seen Eleven's powers and now Joyce is seeing this supernatural stuff happening in her house, they will already be thinking of it in supernatural terms. But Hopper, I mean, he just sees a kid's gone missing and now somebody committed suicide. I feel like he's going to reach different conclusions because he's going to be thinking about it in this world terms. So I do find that a very intriguing concept. But the final thing to talk about, I think, is Lonnie. I will say when he was first mentioned, this was exactly the type of character that I had in mind. Seems like a sleazebag, hanging out with somebody that seems much younger than him, who's also not the best person. The fact she talked about trading down to his son, just ugh. The fact that he just didn't give a shit that Will's missing, blaming Joyce for it, you can just tell he's the most unlikable douchebag ever. And this is exactly who I was picturing when they were talking about him in the first episode when Joyce was trying to call him. This is the guy that I was thinking it would be. So I don't know how much he's going to play him for the rest of the season, but he does give off that type of character that you just absolutely love to hate whenever he's on screen. You just want to boo him every time he shows up. But since he seems to be living further away from Hawkins, I don't know if he's going to affect much in the story, so it's going to be interesting to see. But first 2 episodes down, and it's got my interest. I was already interested in watching it just because I'd heard a lot of good things about it and the concept of it. Again, there are elements of this that are right down my alley and the type of show that I would like to watch. But not having any of the details of the show, coming into this pretty much blind, these first 2 episodes are a good hook. They do get me interested. They do get me wanting to know more, wanting to solve the mysteries of what's happening here, who these people are in the suits that are trying to track down 11 and track down seemingly the monster as well. There are a lot of really good questions that are being posed, and the acting, the music, the atmosphere as well, all of it is just a lot of fun to get invested in. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where the rest of the season's going to go, but until then, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these first 2 episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Stranger Things reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of other reviews on here, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.